I'm going to talk about the reality that you have it within you to do amazing things. I believe it, and I want you to believe it. And I tell you this because I'm a kid from the streets of Tacoma who literally took a mess of a life that I was living and turned it around. And I always say when I have this conversation with people or I do lectures, with the reality that I've gone from the streets, from jail cells to living the amazing life I have today, going from couch surfing and being on the streets to having a massively stable living situation that I've had for years now, going from being in mental health crisis after mental health crisis to having a pretty good stable mental health in my life today, going from having dysfunctional relationships within my family and in my friends to having a really strong family today and really powerful friendships with the people I interact with in my world. I've gone from being unemployable to having years and years of stable employment in my life today. I've worked in a variety of different careers, from fast food to being a college professor, and all of them had helped me along the way to get to where I am in my life now. What I like people to know, so the goal of this talk today is to help you to start believing in yourself, if that's something you need to do, to help you see that you can turn negative behavior and negative habits to positive habits. If you want to change your relationship with drugs and alcohol, if you want to start thinking in a more positive mindset, if you want to set a goal and work toward it, that's what the goal of this talk is today, is to help you to see that you can do that. I always say I'm nobody special. I'm literally just a kid from the streets of Tacoma who lived a crazy wild ride of a childhood, lived a crazy wild ride of, in my adult years until I was 30. And literally, I remember thinking, I don't think I'm going to make it till 30. Whether that mean I would end up in prison or dead. But here I am, decades later, having turned my life around. And when I say I'm nobody special, I don't mean to say that I don't have a strong set of skills or I don't have unique talents. That's certainly true. But what I believe in is learning for yourself what you need to do to improve your life. There's no magic wand for working and achieving goals. There's no magic wand for finding a life in recovery. There's no magic wand for turning negative behavior to positive. That's my belief. What has helped me the most is learning skills to change tapes in my head from negative to positive, to learn skills to move away from drugs and alcohol and stay away, to learn skills to stay diligent when I want to work toward a goal. None of this for me has been something that's just been handed to me. I always like to say that too. I've done the work. I say this also, I have not done the work in isolation. There is no way I would have the amazing life that I have today without the help from people around me. So I'm going to talk about some skills I want you to consider employing for your life to improve in whatever area that you want to improve. So for me, I had to learn skills. I had to access resources to change my relationship with drugs and alcohol. And so I'm going to kind of use some of the skills I've learned in that arena that you can apply for that if that's what you want to do, if you want to change your relationship with drugs and alcohol. Or some of these skills are very applicable to many areas of your life. If you want to work toward a goal, if you want to change any type of negative behavior to positive behavior. The one thing that I've learned is to educate myself. To educate myself in those areas where I want to change behavior or work toward a goal. And so for yourself, like I say for people in recovery, educate yourself. If you want to get into a career path, whatever that may be, what I like to say is find someone that's doing what you want to do and ask them to have a conversation. Ask them, how did you get to where you are? And if you want to stretch it a little further, ask them if they'd be willing to mentor you, right? You'll get a lot of information from that person who is doing that job or that career or running that business that you aspire to do. One thing that's really important is to consider your circle of influence. Now this is a really, really important one. I want you to think about the 4 or 5 people that you communicate with on a regular basis. So think about that for a second. Who are those people? Now, those 4 or 5 people that you communicate with on a regular basis, they are either helping you move toward or away from your goal, whatever that goal is. Why? Well, here we go. The 4 or 5 people you communicate with on a regular basis, the people that you allow to influence you and you take in the information they get and you give them information, there's that two-way street, those 4 or 5 people, basically you are them. I'm going to pause for a second. You are the sum of the 4 or 5 people that you communicate with on a regular basis. So I'm really mindful of who I allow into my brain. Those 4 or 5 people do have an influence on you and your decision making. So if you're wanting to work toward a positive goal, if you're wanting to change negative behavior to positive behavior, then I want you to sit down and think about the 4 or 5 people you communicate with on a regular basis, and you might need to make some adjustments. You might need to switch it up. Those 4 or 5 people in my world are people that are going places, that are people that are wanting to do good in the world. They're people that, a few of the people in my circle of influence are actually out ahead, right? So I have something to work toward. So your circle of influence is critically important to your success or failure towards your goals. I want you to consider your daily routines that are habitual, that you do on a daily basis, and consider this. Are they moving you toward or away from what you want out of life? Right? So I have lived a life with mental health issues, with the kind of depression that kept me in bed for days on end. Like literally, I would have friends do welfare checks. I had law enforcement called to come and do welfare checks on me. And that's not where I want to be in my life. And so I've done a variety of things to stay out of that deep, dark depression, which is a real thing, right? It's a mental health disorder and it's very treatable. So what have I done? I've gone to mental health therapists, lots of therapy, and it's been really helpful. I've talked to my physician, and I use medication as needed. My circle of influence is really influential on my managing my depression. Daily habits, I have a very strict, rigid, if you want to call it, daily routine that I do 7 days a week. And one of the things that I do, you just consider this for yourself, is I make sure that I have a regular sleep cycle. I get up and go to bed at nearly the same time 7 days a week. I have a very specific morning routine that gets me out of bed and keeps me out of bed. I get up at the same time. First thing I do is I get up, I get a cup of coffee, I open all the blinds and the curtain to let that natural light in. I make my bed every day. Why? Well, it's a little bit harder to get back into a made bed. And then I go on a morning walk every day. Every day I get outside first thing. And then I come back and I get ready for the day. Right? So think about that for yourself. What are you doing on a daily basis that's helping you move toward or away from your goals? Right? And none of this, my friends, you have to do perfectly. What I like to say is just a daily progression toward, right? Are you going to have days where you maybe don't do much, or maybe days where you slip back? Absolutely. None of it's perfect. But get up every day and say, okay, today's a new day. I didn't do as well as I wanted to working toward my goals yesterday, but I'm going to try again. That's one thing that people in recovery, and I want you to think about for yourself, but people in recovery really have. And it's that stick-to-itiveness. What I say for people in early recovery is, hey, how much investment and time did you put toward chasing drugs and alcohol? I put a lot of investment and time into chasing drugs and alcohol for years. So flip the script. Take that same amount of energy and put it toward your life and recovery, right? So whatever it is, if you put a lot of energy into living in a negative way or have negative habits, take that energy and flip the script and say, you know what? I'm going to take that same energy and I'm going to put it toward a healthy life. I'm going to take that same energy and I'm going to put it toward a life in recovery, right? Whatever it may be. So I've talked about daily habits are really important, positive daily habits, having a strong circle of influence, a strong support group. Engage with those resources you need to improve your life, whether it's earning a degree, going to a trade school, talking to someone about mentoring you toward working toward a career path you want, taking care of your mental health through a variety of different ways, whether it's therapy or natural things that you can do, like going for walks on a daily basis, having positive daily routines. If you want to improve your physical health, right? I always say you don't have to join a gym, right? Like you can exercise for free by going outside, going for walks every day, going for hikes, going for a run, whatever it may be. But doing things on a daily basis, at least something little to work toward that positive change. The other thing that I want to give you is the technique of positive affirmations. And again, I'm giving you all skills. This is nothing magical. And I always say I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not. I'm just willing to learn skills to maintain and improve my life. And so positive affirmations have been something that was given to me as a gift in the mid-90s when I first got into recovery, and I was involved in a program for people in early recovery. And we learned how to write positive affirmations. So think about the tapes in your brain. And are they negative tapes? Are you always telling yourself negative things? Are you always being down on yourself? Right? So those tapes get repeated again and again and again. Well, there's a technique through the use of positive affirmations that you can use to help reverse some of those tapes. So one of my very first positive affirmations that I created when I was involved in this program, let me paint you the picture of where I was in my life before I read it to you. Now, I was brand new in recovery, mid-90s, in and out of jail cells, on the streets, just crazy, right? But I went back to treatment and I really wanted to turn it around. So I heard about this program, and at the time, I had no job. I had no money. My self-esteem was not good, right? Like those tapes that I had going in my head were not positive tapes because I had done a lot of damage to my life to that point. I was a convicted felon. I didn't have a stable living environment. I didn't know if I was going to be able to stay sober for any amount of time, but I was starting to listen and surround myself with positive people. So this program was all about that. We did a lot of self-esteem work. And positive affirmations are a skill or a technique you can use to help turn those negative tapes around. So I didn't have a job at this time. I didn't feel real positive about myself. Oh, and I had a massive amount of financial wreckage. So I'm going to read you my first positive affirmation, keeping in mind that my situation at the time was nearly polar opposite of what I'm about to read to you. So I was taught to do this. Here it is. I enjoy working consistently and feel positive about myself when I make money. Now let's go back. Remember, I didn't have a job. I didn't have money. I had less than no money. I didn't even feel like I was employable. But I was taught to write positive affirmations, and you write them in a way as if it's already happened for you, whatever it is. So I've used these along the way throughout my life, ever since learning about these in the mid-90s. And they've been very, very, very helpful for me. So in our home, my wife and I, now years later, if you come into our home, you'll see a lot of positive affirmation type sayings just in our home as a whole. So think about that for yourself. And you can Google, how do I create positive affirmations? Boom, it'll come up. That's been one really small skill that has actually had a really positive effect on my life as a whole. The other skill that I've learned is journaling. Journaling is a powerful tool to help you Get the thoughts and feelings out of your head and onto paper, or if you type it, an online journal. I have journals going all the way back to the mid-90s when it was suggested to me to consider start journaling. And you might think, well, why would I want to write down what's going on in my life? Well, for me, what's been really helpful is it's helped me to see patterns in my life. Patterns that I had in relationships, patterns that I had in destructive thinking. And it's also helped me, as you continue to do this, to see positive patterns, to see progress in my life. Like, I have my journal from the mid-90s when I was in and out of recovery, and I got to tell you, I look at it now and I go, wow, look how far you have come, David. I have come so far. And even if you just start journaling now and start using some of these techniques I'm talking about to improve your life, you'll be able to go back pretty quickly and start seeing little increments of improvement in your way of thinking, in your behavior. And it's a great, great tool to use if you're thinking about improving your life. So in this podcast, again, my goal is to help you to see that you have it within you to do amazing things. And I know I've already said this once, and I've said it in previous podcasts, but I'll keep saying it. There's no magic trick to this. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not. What I have, though, is the willingness to try new things, the willingness to get up every day and keep moving towards good, the willingness to say that I'm going to do good, the willingness to do the work. Right? It's none of this is easy. I wish I could say, if you're really struggling, that especially with drugs and alcohol, that a life in recovery is just this grand, beautiful thing. No, it's not. Life is still going to be life. But I got to tell you, my life as a person in long-term recovery is dramatically better than it ever was in active use. My work that I've done to improve my mental health. Do I have tough days? Absolutely. But I got to tell you, even some of my toughest days in long-term recovery from struggling with massive mental health disorders are much better than the days before I started learning skills and I started tapping into resources to improve my mental health. You have it within you to do amazing things. I teach on a college campus, and what I say to young people is that they have it within them to do amazing things. You have it within you to do amazing things. And here's what I say to that. I need you to do the work you need to do to enhance, improve your life. Why? Because the more of us that do this, the better the world we have, the better communities we have. I say this about people in recovery. There are over 25 million people in recovery in our country right now. And the more of us that speak loudly about how we found a life in recovery and how we sustain our life in recovery, the more people that we will help see they can find their own path. That's why I speak loudly about how I've improved my life. That's why I speak loudly about the fact that you can do the same, because the more of us that do this, the better off all of our society will be. I hope this information's been helpful for you. Have a great day.